The plot of Netflix's series, Midnight at the Pera Palace, follows a young journalist who goes back in time, and suddenly all hell breaks loose. Ezra, a journalist and an avid reader of Agatha Christie novels, something that she mentions in every possible conversation, wants to write about various global concerns, but her editor forces her to stick to the clickbait. She was asked to write about the Pera Palace on its 130th anniversary in one such briefing. She met Amit, the hotel manager, who familiarized her with the history of the hotel. Amit spoke about the various occurrences that took place 100 years ago, as if he was a witness to their history. Since it started pouring heavily, Amit offered Ezra to stay at the hotel. Before midnight, Ezra found a key next to her bed. She believed it must have been Amit who left the key to the door of the room in which Agatha Christie stayed. Overjoyed with the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, Ezra entered the room and crashed on the bed with the key in her hand. Just when the clock ticked to 12, there was a sudden earthquake, and Ezra was transported to a different era. And thus began Ezra's journey through history, though the consequences of maneuvering space and time can never be good, can it? Who was Peride? What happened to her? With beady eyes and no idea about the consequences of her actions, Ezra tries to blend in with the 1919 crowd. But her appearance was snarked at by the people around her. The Pera Palace was truly a symbol of luxury during those days. It hosted every important person in Turkey, from the members of the Turkish national movement to even British Army personnel. Ezra caught the eyes of British Prime Minister David Lloyd George when she spoke with certainty about the Turkish victory. Ezra was unaware of the fact that history could be distorted. What might seem like a minor mistake could turn into a major problem if the history was tampered with. Amit could sense a problem when his fingers started to turn black. He went back in time to find Ezra. Meanwhile, Ezra was followed by Hallett, upon the advice of the British, a businessman who worked for the foreigners. As Ira and Amit hid away from Hallett in one of the hotel rooms, Ezra noticed a picture of a woman who looked just like her. When they felt that Hallett was no longer looming in front of their door, they decided to go back to room 411 and travel back to where they came from. But of course, such simplicity is not meant for period dramas with time travel. When they entered the room, they discovered the body of a woman who looked like Ezra. She had died a few minutes back. Amit noticed her handkerchief with the letter P stitched on it. He recognized it as the Peride handkerchief, a historical element that was preserved by the hotel. But Peride was responsible for an extremely significant historical event. She was supposed to inform Gen. Mustafa Kemal about his possible assassination by the British, which would lead to the strengthening of the Turkish resistance movement. Since history was now distorted by the untimely death of Peride, Ezra and Amit planned to restore it. Ezra would pretend to be Peride and would conduct her duty as she was supposed to. With very little knowledge about Peride's life, Ezra embarks on this strange journey, hoping to solve a greater problem as she had always wanted to. The Pera Palace keys and their secrets. Amit always believed that he was the only one who knew about the Pera Palace secrets. He knew how going back in time could lead to terrible outcomes. He protected the key to the room for over 30 years, making himself believe that the world could collapse without his surveillance. But, upon reaching the past, he realized that he was wrong. Peride knew about the key and its capability. She wanted to use it to find out who was behind the assassination and help Gen. Mustafa Kemal defeat him. Peride's diary had all the secrets written in it, and just when Amit was trying to fathom the vast expanse of the problem, he was attacked, and the diary was stolen. It was from Peride's diary that Amit learned about Dimitri, a hotel employee who knew about the secrets. Amit visited Dimitri's house and found tens of similar-looking keys, which meant there were that many gateways. When Dimitri tricked Amit, he pushed him off into the sewage. After days of struggling, he finally found his way out and was determined to know the truth. He got Dimitri arrested for a false charge and promised his freedom in exchange for his knowledge. Dimitri explained that his master was the man who first learned about the keys. When his wife died young, he tried to go back to the past to save her. What he realized in the process was that by changing the course of history, he was turning demonic. He later murdered his wife, whom he had saved. He had carved several keys from the soil on which the hotel was built, that once used to be a graveyard, thinking that it would be in demand. But he soon realized that his idea was terrible, and he killed everyone who knew about the keys and their secrets except Dmitri. Dmitri tried to attack Amit once again, but failed. Amit tried to explain the reason they were there. Dmitri later started helping Amit and Ezra fix their mistake. Who murdered Peride? When Halit was shot by a British official, Amit's arms started to turn black. Dmitri believed that it was a result of a particular change in the past that endangered the existence of Amit. Amit explained to Ezra and Dmitri that his father was Halit. Ezra decided to travel back to the time penicillin was discovered to help Halit recover. But as luck would have it, she was taken to the year 1917. She met Halit. He was then a poor boy who wanted to make it big. Ezra had fallen in love with Halit, especially after learning that he worked for the resistance. When she traveled to the past, Halit and Ezra shared a romantic moment, but she had to leave to travel to the future. Ezra traveled to the year 1942, and even though she found penicillin this time, she was disappointed to see the alternative history. Instead of the Turkish victory, she saw that George had emerged as the new dictator. Turks were either murdered or thrown into prison. This would be the result if Ezra failed to fix the past that was plundered. When Ezra traveled back to 1919, she gave the penicillin to Mrs. Sonia, a waitress who used to be a Russian princess. Mrs. Sonia was Amit's mother, and for Amit to be born, she had to fall in love with Halit. After 3 months, Sonia was in love with Halit, but he was always in search of Ezra. He knew her as Peride's twin sister. When they met, Ezra confronted him about the death of Peride, since Dmitri had seen him escape from Peride's room on the night of the murder. Halit explained that when he reached the room, he found Peride's dead body, someone else was behind the murder, and the only evidence was a ring. The ring belonged to Sonia, a family heirloom that she treasured. But why would Sonia murder Peride? It was because of the tampering of the past that Halit had fallen in love with Ezra, whom he called Peride, the identity she had taken. He knew she was not Peride as he had seen her dead body. He assumed she was Peride's twin sister. This romance, which was not supposed to occur, led to a different future. In the year 1920, when Sonia was pregnant with Amit, Halit decided to abandon them and find Peride Ezra. This angered Sonia, and she decided to travel to the past and murder Peride once and for all. This murder, out of jealousy, led to the complete disruption of the past. How did Sonia find the gateway key? In the current 1919, where Ezra and Amit had traveled, Sonia was employed by George to steal Peride's diary, and she stole a key as well. She had learned about the gateway from the diary. This was the information that she used in 1920 to travel in time and murder Peride in 1919. In the meantime, Halit was captured by the Turkish army for stealing British weapons. Ezra showed video evidence to prove how cold-blooded George was. When Ezra and Halit were released from prison, they rushed to save Gen. Mustafa Kemal. A bomb was planted on the ship he was traveling on. Ezra and Halit threw the time bomb into the sea and saved the world from another dictator. Ezra bid farewell to Halit since she did not believe in altering history any longer. Ezra and Amit traveled time once again, but they reached 1995. A baby was found on the bed. Amit recalled the incident when he believed that a couple had left their baby in the room and she was sent to an orphanage. Amit then remembered that the police had named the baby Ezra. Time travel allowed her to meet her toddler self. A picture and a key were left with the baby. It was a picture of Madame Eleni with the baby in her hand. A note was attached which advised the one who was reading it to save her mother, and to do so, she must use the key to the gateway of truth, a gateway that can be used to travel to the exact time one wants to. The picture had another clue: the Nazi symbol. The alteration of the past and, therefore, the truth seems to be a constant. We can conclude that Ezra was not born in the year 1995, but was rather sent here in this year. She was perhaps born during the Nazi regime when Jews were escaping Germany and often took shelter in Istanbul. Her parents must have known about the hotel's secrets. So, who were Ezra's parents? Was it another attempt to fix the past with the gateway? Such questions can only be answered with another season. With a twisted narrative, Midnight at the Pera Palace will leave you searching for answers. Entertaining to watch, funny at times, with a remarkable execution, this series is worth. Is Midnight at the Pera Palace based on a true story? Even though Netflix has no dearth of Turkish titles, Midnight at the Pera Palace has created a niche for itself among international audiences. Directed by Nisan Dag and Emir San, the drama series follows a young journalist Ezra who is tasked with writing about the famed titular hotel. Her once-in-a-lifetime adventure becomes something much more as she is transported back to 1919 and gets involved in a political conspiracy. While the series evidently has an element of science fiction, due to time travel, the storyline appears to be somewhat realistic. So, in case that has got you wondering whether the show is inspired by real-life events, we have all the information you need. Is Midnight at the Pera Palace a true story? Midnight at the Pera Palace is partially based on a true story. In fact, the show is based on a book titled Midnight at the Pera Palace: The Birth of Modern Istanbul by Charles King. However, the screen adaptation does not follow the book to a T. In an interview in December 2014, author King explained that the midnight in the title of his book actually refers to the New Year's Eve of 1925. That is when the Turkish Republic began following the Gregorian calendar instead of the Islamic one. However, most of the events in the show take place in 1919, which was an important time in the history of Turkey. It marked the beginning of what is known as the Turkish War of Independence, a series of military campaigns carried out from 1919 to 1923. These were driven by the Turkish national movement post-World War I. While the storyline of the series is largely a work of fiction, it is grounded in reality. For instance, Pera Palace is actually a hotel in Beyoğlu, a district in the European side of Istanbul. Constructed in 1892, it was meant to host the passengers of the Orient Express. Interestingly, the grand establishment was a symbol of modernity back in the early 1900s as well, since it was among the first places in the city to offer amenities such as elevators, radiator heat, and electrically powered lighting. Pera Palace lies close to important landmarks in Istanbul, such as Taksim Square and Istiklal Avenue. Moreover, consulates for various countries also lie in the vicinity, such as that of the UK, Russia, France, Germany, Sweden, and Italy, to name a few. Therefore, it is not hard to imagine why Pera Palace became the nucleus of economic and political activities as well as espionage. In fact, during World War II, Istanbul found itself at the eye of the storm once again despite being a neutral country, as it provided passage to Jews fleeing from Europe during the Holocaust. So, the socio-political unrest seen in Pera Palace and Istanbul is not so removed from reality. But apart from the factors discussed above, it is safe to say that Netflix's Midnight at the Pera Palace is not based on any particular person or set of people.